Hi, I'm Rachel, and this is my January 2023 book haul. We are 1 month into the new year, and I already have acquired lots of exciting new books to talk about, or a handful, really, of exciting new books to talk about. And also, just to put it out there, it seems like my technological problems are decreasing. Knock on wood, the camera's doing okay, figuring out how to work with that. And I also bought a new replacement, really, plug for my laptop because the old one was having difficulty connecting, so, to charge the laptop when the battery was drained. So, huzzah, got over that. Anyway, all good news going on, but let's get back to books. The first book I have to show you, I've already talked about on a video this month. This is Dear Shuni, Contemporary Women's Midrash, edited by Tamar Biala, which I was hoping would make it to the National Jewish Book Awards, which I made a video about that I'll link down below. I was hoping it would be an awardee or a finalist. Alas, that was not to be the case, but I already had this book in possession and was excited about it. Because I take part every year in the Maybe Midrash Readathon, which is supposed to encourage people to read serious works of fiction and nonfiction about religion, and it is named for, well, the biblical practice, or the ancient practice anyway, in Judaism of on elaborating on biblical, stories and narrative, finding the variety of empty spots and writing something to, explain things. And in modern times, it's been a way to look at religion and see how it might apply to things that the ancients might not have thought about. Like women's issues, for example, or women's perspectives, which have, for most of Jewish history, alas, been quite lacking in the public sphere. But now, there's more books like this. And so I was so excited because this was published last year, and the Jewish Book Council talked about it. And I knew I had to read it for a Maybe Midrash, and I will read from the flap. This historic collection of midrashim, composed by Israeli women, has been long anticipated by scholars of gender and religion, as well as readers and educators in American synagogues, rabbinical seminaries, and adult learning programs. Using the classical forms developed by the ancient rabbis, the writers forged new ties between scripture and contemporary issues in audacious and innovative ways. This volume features a comprehensive introduction to Midrash for the uninitiated reader by distinguished scholar Tamar Kadari, Dean of the Schechter Institute of Jewish Studies in Jerusalem. Oh, that's my denomination, or the denomination of Judaism I currently belong to. And is edited with extensive commentary by Tamar Biala. So yeah, here we have lots of intros and commentaries from various people. Feels very Jewish already, and I anticipate reading it in May. This next book I also have plans for reading sometime in the new year. In fact, I can say that for 3 of the 4 of these books. And for this one, this is an Egyptian novel by Orly Castell Bloom, which I am hoping to read for Women in Translation Month in August. And it just happened to be the one that I put on Goodreads most, actually, I guess most in the past, even though it was 2021. And I figured that would be a nice excuse to go ahead and get something off of that Goodreads TBR as well. Yeah, I will read from the back. The protagonist has Egyptian roots going back many generations. On her father's side, to the expulsion of the Jews in Spain in 1492, when 7 brothers of the Castile family from Castilla landed on the Gaza coast after many trials and tribulations. Her mother's side goes back even further, for she is a descendant of the only family that Jewish history has ignored, the one that said no to Moses and stayed in Egypt. This family migrated to Israel in the 1950s and settled on a kibbutz, but they were soon expelled for Stalinism and moved to Tel Aviv. Mixing historical and biographical facts, made-up legends, plus other fictions and exaggerations, Castell Bloom writes an unconventional saga of her family, the Castiles. As in other sagas, there are family meals and get-togethers, deaths and funerals, sayings and stories, and things that are not to be mentioned because they disgrace the clan. But here, these elements all slip and slide sideways into parody and the absurd, So yeah, I'm very excited because this is a look into Jewish history that I'm not as familiar with, like this particular heritage, and also it's a relatively short book to contain all of that it says is crammed into this. So let's, I don't know, I'm hoping it all works out and that I enjoy all of, the absurdity stuff. And it is translated by Todd Hassack Lowy. And this third book has also been on my Goodreads TBR for a while. In fact, it's been on the TBR for so long that I made a resolution to knock it off because I do a top of the Goodreads resolution every year to knock off my books that have been on the longest. And anyway, that book is The Last Neanderthal by Claire Cameron, which is one of those books that I probably heard about through Liberty Hardy or Book Riot a couple of years ago when it came out. Just, I think this one you could call literary fiction, although I tend to call everything literary fiction if it's mainstream. But I will read from the flap. 40,000 years in the past, the last family of Neanderthals roams the earth. After a crushingly hard season, their numbers are low, but Girl, the oldest daughter, is just coming of age, and her family is determined to travel to the annual meeting place and find her a mate. Before long, though, the unforgiving landscape takes its toll, and Girl is left alone to care for Runt, a foundling, even as she sets out to discover what remains of her kind. With the dangers of winter quickly approaching, Girl realizes she has one more chance to save her people, even if it means sacrificing part of herself. In the modern day, archaeologist Rosamund Gale works well into her pregnancy, racing to evacuate newly found Neanderthal artifacts before her baby comes. Linked across the ages by the shared experience of birth and early motherhood, both stories examine the often taboo corners of women's lives. Drawing on the latest science to explore a misunderstood people, acclaimed author Claire Cameron has penned a haunting, suspenseful, and profoundly moving novel that asks us to reconsider what it means to be human. So yeah, there's a lot I think that drew me to this. It's so exciting to think of, getting to fictionalize the accounts of some of our most ancient ancestors, but I also do think the archaeological modern day element and like the dual timeline thing also intrigues me and reminds me a little bit of The Weight of Ink by Rachel Kadish, although that wasn't going back quite as far in time in the past storyline. But yeah, I hope she did her research, but mostly I just hope she wrote compelling characters, and I feel like putting the past and present together is a nice way to remind us how, people are always people, in a way, at least. So we'll see how it goes. And finally, this last novel I picked up a little bit more on a whim just recently because I took a collection of short stories that I've read to a free little library that's close to me and looked through its collection to see what stood out to me the most. And what did is this novel, The Unsinkable Greta James by Jennifer E. Smith, which apparently was published last year. I had no idea about it, and I would say it's literary, but I actually think the correct term is like upmarket women's fiction. I was trying to do a little research. It was also a book of the month last year, and I will read from the flap. Just after the sudden death of her mother, her first and most devoted fan, and weeks before the launch of her high-stakes sophomore album, Greta James falls apart on stage. The footage quickly goes viral, and she stops playing, her career suddenly in jeopardy. The kind of jeopardy her father, Conrad, has always predicted. The kind he warned her about when he urged her to make more practical choices with her life. Months later, Greta, still heartbroken and very much adrift, reluctantly agrees to accompany Conrad on the Alaskan cruise her parents had booked to celebrate their 40th anniversary. It could be their last chance to heal old wounds in the wake of shared loss. But the trip will also prove to be a voyage of discovery for them both, and for Ben Wilder, a charming historian who was on board to lecture about the call of the wild and struggling with a major upheaval in his own life. As Greta works to build back her confidence and Ben confronts an uncertain future, they find themselves drawn to and relying on each other. It's here, in this unlikeliest of places, at sea, far from the packed city venues where she usually plays, and surrounded by the stunning Alaskan wilderness, that Greta will finally confront the choices she's made, the heartbreak she's suffered, and the family hurt that runs deep. In the end, she'll have to decide what her path forward might look like and how to find her voice again. So yeah, that gives a lot of detail, hopefully not too spoilery for anyone, but yeah, a lot of interesting parts in this. You know, we have some family loss and this one character, Greta, our protagonist, who seems a bit adrift, and she has like this interesting backstory of being a musician, and she has issues with her dad, but now she's, you know, probably going to be a bit of a romance on the boat with the other person, and yeah, then getting to like learn about Alaskan cruises. Some of my family members have taken them, but I never have, so it'll be intriguing setup there. So I look forward to getting to this whenever it is I do get to this. And that about covers it for me now. I will leave the Goodreads links for all of these books linked down below. And hopefully we'll be back on this channel relatively imminently because, you know, I'm posting this on the very last day of January, and on the very first day of February, Robert is supposed to get back to us judges of the BookTube Prize and announce the long list for 2023. And for those of us with assignments, which is hopefully me, we will get our ballots for what we will be judging in the octafinals. So I am so excited, and I hope I'll get a really great ballot. I'm just hoping I get a ballot and I'm not on the waiting list, but you know, I'll take what I can get, and I'm sure I'll have some thoughts about the long list as a whole, either way. And just as a quick intro, the BookTube Prize was started by booktuber Robert Barter Hordes for the literary bookternet community to judge the best in fiction and nonfiction published last year in the US. And this, I think, is the 5th official year. So huzzah! And I hope the rest of my fellow judges are excited too. And I hope you're all excited to be moving on into the month of February, because here it is already. So anyway, thanks so much for watching, everyone. And I'll see you next time.